Hi everyone. So the purpose of this presentation is to reintroduce you to the climate portal that we had developed and just to help facilitate conversation and give us the opportunity to start getting feedback from you all. We had presented this portal back in January during our last meeting of last year. So for some of you, this may be a bit of a refresher. So I want to start off by doing just a quick review of some of the terms that we use to display the climate data, which is going to be shown as either historical precipitation and historical growing degree days. Historical precipitation is going to be displayed in millimeters, so that one's pretty straightforward. Some of them might be cumulative and some of them are displayed by month in a bar chart, which I'll show you here in just a bit. Many of you already use and are comfortable with accumulated growing degree days, so I'll just do a really quick review of them. So accumulated growing degree days are defined as by the National Phenology Network as the number of degrees the average daily temperature exceeds a base temperature. The most common base temperatures used are 32 and 50 degrees Fahrenheit. That base temperature is going to change based off of your species of interest. For example, you can see on this chart here, cool season grasses use a base of 32, just like western wheatgrass would use 32, as opposed to warm season grasses, just like blue grama, which use a base of 50. That difference is just because they require a different amount of thermal energy in order to reach certain growth phases. And that's why growing degree days are a little bit different from other terms you might hear when describing climate, like frost-free or freeze-free days. And let's look at how to calculate growing degree days. You take the average daily temperature and subtract your base temperature, which is going to be either that 32 or 50 most commonly. And then we can calculate the accumulation of those growing degree days or thermal units, if you'd rather, to make graphs such as these shown here. And I'm going to show you in the portal as well, which we can then use to make inferences and predictions about different species. So now that we have covered some of that basic terminology, I want to go over to the climate portal here. This is kind of like the landing page that you see right off the bat. And like I said earlier, we've got the historical growing degree days and historical precipitation. This data is going to be from data that our team with Dr. Amy Ganguli has been compiling all of this weather station data from 75 different stations, already pre-established NOAA weather stations across the state. Again, we have about 75 of those that give us adequate amount of data to call it climate data. So on the left-hand side here, there's a menu with a couple drop-down options. So first, you're going to choose your weather station. When talking to the High Plains Grasslands Alliance, we like to use this Ocate 2 Northwest. It's located in Mora County. It's got a pretty decent data set with lots of data that we can look at. So on the title here, we can kind of see it gives us that period of record for that weather station. So the amount of data that we have is going to be from 1964 to 2018. So it says here that we want to choose a starting year. So this is a really neat portion of it. So we can either look at all of the data available for that one weather station, or we can look at just a 1 decade at a time, or even 1 year, just as long as they're all within each group. So just to make it a little bit easier on the eyes, because you can see there's lots of lines going on there, I'm going to look at just the most recent decade, which is going to be 2008 to 2018. And we'll wait for it to populate. So now we can see just about 10 lines instead of all of those other ones. And then again, the ending year, you can choose to just look at a few years, or you can look at it by decade or the whole period of record for that station. The next thing is going to be choosing a reference temperature. So that's our base temperature that I covered earlier, depending on your species of interest. So it starts off by doing base 50, or you can change it to base 32. I'm going to switch back to 50. And then the next thing that we can look at is adding a long-term average accumulated growing degree day line. So if I click that, and you can only click one of these boxes at a time, that's going to be the same for each thing that we look at on the portal here. So if we added that long-term degree line, I'm going to zoom in and hopefully it'll let me. So you can see it's a little blurry, but this hot pink line here, it does not have a year associated with it. So that's going to be our historical average for that site. So a really neat thing with this portal that we were able to do, and our code expert was able to do, is take the whole period of record for that station and calculate the historical average for that station. So that's what that pink line is. And then the gray line above and below it is the confidence interval surrounding that historical average. So anything above or below, not within that line, is significantly different from the average of what we would expect. So you can see we've got some years here that were significantly hotter than we would expect for that site. And again, it's really neat that we can see the average not for the state, but for that specific weather station. So next we can, again, only one box at a time, we can show the deviation from that long term. So all that this did was take that pink line and then flatten it out so we can see how each year deviates from that. So we can look at the data even closer and see exactly just how different it was from what we would expect from that weather station in that site. And then right here, there's a little menu where you can brush and double click to zoom. But if you click on anything, like let's say we wanted to look specifically at 2018 on this Julian day 151, which is the day within the year, we can click it and it'll say we got pretty close and the accumulated growing degree days was 121 for that specific day. So it's kind of neat that you can click on that line if you have a year of interest that you want to look at, or a time of year if you wanted to look at the Julian day first, the start of your growing season, when you're going to make those management decisions, what kind of thermal energy that we're expected to see, what we've seen in the past. You can compare it from different years to see kind of what your management was like that year, and if you want to do it the same this year if we're expecting the same outcome. This download plot, you can download, it'll give you a little JPEG, a little picture of just this plot here, which you can then zoom in and out of. It won't have that interactive feature where you can click on it, but it is pretty neat, so you can download it pretty easily and print it out if you need to. So that's the historical growing degree days. The next one will be this historical precipitation. And again, we've got kind of the same menu here where you click the station. So I'm going to click that Okate again and wait for it again. The period of record for that station was 1964 to 2018. Lots of lines going on here. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the window of data that I want to look at. Let's just do the last decade again. So I'm going to do 2008 to 2018. And then again, we can only click one box at a time. So first it's going to show us the cumulative precipitation in millimeters for that whole year. Then we can add again another long-term precipitation line, which is going to have that pink line again, which is the average, the historical average for that specific weather station. And then it's going to have that confidence interval again. So anything above it was a significantly wet year, anything below it. We all remember 2012 was a pretty bad drought year, and this data kind of supports that, saying that it was significantly below average for that site. And again, we can do the deviation from that average, which is again going to flatten out that pink line and show us just how different each of those years were. And again, it's still in precipitation, so we can see 2012 had about 200 millimeters less precipitation than we would have expected for that site in Mora County. And you can click on this one again, and down here at the bottom, it will populate the Julian day and the not accumulated growing degree day, but it will show you the precipitation. And you can download that plot as well. So that is the historical data that we can look at, data that is pulled from existing NOAA weather stations. Now, the really exciting thing that we were all really excited to show you was the visualize your climate data. So this is the really, really cool part of this portal, is that you can take your climate data, put it into the right formatting, which is super simple, and then put it in here and it will populate those graphs, and we can then compare it to the historical climate data from the weather station that is closest to your property. So what you're going to do is choose your file type first. What I have is an Excel spreadsheet that will show at the end of your saved file. You're going to browse for it. And I've got mine saved right here to the documents. Click open, so it'll populate it. Give it just a minute, and it will upload all of that data. Here it will show you, this is the display data. Right now it's just showing the head of it, so it's just showing the first few rows. If I selected all, it would populate all of those rows, so it would just be rows and rows of data. But if you wanted to look specifically for that date, then you can do that. Or you can just pick the head, which will show just a smaller version of that. Again, you can only click one box at a time. First off, it's showing us average temperature. Each of these is a year, so we've got 2014 January to December, and then we got 2015 January to December. The only data I inputted in here was 2 years, just because I didn't want it to take a while to load, but this will show you all the years that you upload to there. And we've got the max average temperature, the min, and then the average right here in the middle, so you can see kind of that monsoon, or not monsoon, that's precipitation up. But you can see how it gets warmer here in the summer and then kind of dips back down. Now let's look at precipitation. Now we can see that monsoon right here in the peak in 2014. This one will show you a bar graph for each of those. And this is total precipitation in inches for each month. So millimeters was for the historical average. Your data will be displayed in inches. And then we can look at the growing degree days, base 50. Again, I only have 2 years and put it in here, or base 32. So yeah, that is our climate portal. Please let us know if you have any questions. We would love to answer them. Again, we just wanted to spark up some conversation, see how we can make some improvements. So please, if you have any questions, we'd be more than happy to address them. Thank you.